Okay, so this talk is about financial incentives in computing. It's not really about a particular technology, but a whole bunch of things. So yeah, social media is everywhere. You've probably noticed, and individual people can reach a very wide audience, and little mistakes blow out of proportion really quickly. So if you slip up, then everybody hears about it. So today I heard about, on Twitter, about Lenovo making a deal with Microsoft to not allow people to install Linux on Lenovo machines. And I run a Lenovo machine, and I can step up in front of you and tell everyone that I'm not going to buy another Lenovo machine because of that. So this is going out on the internet, and everybody's going to hear about that, and that just kind of proves my point that yeah, word travels quickly. So yeah, as it was said, I'm Aaron McSween. I'm ANSYS on GitHub and on Keybase. And I work on the real-time editing technology, collaborative real-time editing technology at XWiki. And yeah, so before I talk about the zero-knowledge economy, I'm going to talk about the old economy. So this is not really the exciting part, but it gives us some context. Yeah, you know, this is the economy that everybody who was alive before, I don't know, year 2000 was pretty used to. Businesses make products, they sell them, people buy them. Maybe, if you go back further, then most things were provided locally. This is sort of pre-globalization. And a lot of things are sold for cash if you're on the international market. So, for example, Coca-Cola, you don't use your credit card to buy a can of Coke. So, you know, a lot of things are distributed all over the place. It's paper records, people have paper receipts, and it's not easy to analyze. This is what was called a people meter. There's a technical name for it, but you would have this on top of your television set, and you didn't have to have it, but a company would talk you into installing it in your house, and before you go to sit down and watch a TV show, you hit a button saying that family member number 1 is watching TV, and it analyzes what you're doing. And so, yeah, here's a quote: "Being a Nielsen household brought with it some nice perks. They actually paid us. We got a check several times a year for $50, and that's not a lot of money, but every little bit helps." So analytics used to be pretty expensive, and it was hard. You wouldn't get a lot of information from one of these boxes because it's only for one family. And yeah, that doesn't really represent a lot of your market. You miss a lot of data, and there's not really a lot you can do about that because not everybody is going to install this in their house, and even if they did, you wouldn't be able to deal with all of that information. So as somebody participating in this economy, data is really expensive. It's biased because you only get users who choose to install this in their house. Only metadata can be analyzed. They don't get to hear you talking in your living room about what you think of the television show. They just see that you're watching. And even if they had more information, data science was really primitive. So you don't, people didn't really know what to do with all of that stuff. So I guess what we learned from that was that consumer relations are tangible. You go into a store and you buy something and you know the shop owner. If they do something that you don't like, you can just stop buying. And that makes boycotts fairly effective, and users or consumers had a fair bit of power, even though it was difficult to organize. But yeah, that wasn't actually true. So that was the impression that people had. But in reality, yeah, people couldn't really work together, and that's why we saw the rise of big corporations that, you know, Coca-Cola and all that grew into the corporations that we see today. So over time, the economy changed into something else. This wasn't really clearly defined. Some companies picked up on it earlier, some picked up on it later. But we ended up in a new economy. And yeah, the results are hilarious or depressing, depending on your perspective. And here we are in the data economy. And so we see that data is everywhere. The rise of the internet means you go online and every single thing that you do leaves a trace. It's really hard to have privacy because you can encrypt some things, but you can infer a lot from side channels. And if you're a business operating in this economy, you can maybe sell once to your users and then sell again to marketers and kind of double dip. But it's more likely that you don't sell to your users, you sell your users. So you may have heard the phrase, how does it go? If you're not paying, then you are the product. Users don't have a lot of options in this space because MySpace died out because people weren't using it. Facebook is everywhere, Twitter is everywhere, and people go where the most users are. So there's a big, big network effect that you see. And a lot of the users don't know that you're selling their data. So maybe your grandmother's on Facebook. She doesn't know about metadata, probably. I don't know your grandmother, but maybe she doesn't know, maybe she doesn't care, and she just goes on posting. And it's fine. So Cory Doctorow calls this surveillance capitalism. It's this idea of watch everything and sell everything, and it all has a price. But how much is your data worth? It's not very much, actually. So marketers figured this out, that they're buying in bulk, and this information isn't super informative a lot of the time. Most of us, we have this thing called banner blindness, when if you see something that looks like an ad, you automatically ignore it. And this is used as evidence why your website shouldn't have carousels, because it just looks like an ad and people like actually can't see it. There's all these tests where they do eye tracking and you look at the screen and it just jumps right over the carousel. But yeah, if you're pregnant in your second trimester, then your value goes way, way up because they can sell more to you. If you have a specific health condition, or if you're pregnant and you have a health condition, then that's even more. And you see if your credit card is stolen, that's actually not worth that much. $2,000 credit card goes for less than $200. So yeah, things that used to have a lot more value don't anymore because they're plentiful. So for example, here's Ashley Madison, and this company, they're from not far from where I am. I'm from in Canada. I'm from Toronto, and they're from Ottawa, and they figured out that you can make a dating website for people who want to have an affair, and you can make a lot of money off that because these people are trying to keep secrets. And if you're trying to keep secrets, then you'll pay for it. So you sign up for this site, and if you decide after a while that you don't like it, then you pay to delete your data. Well, actually, they have this slogan, it only takes a moment. But it only takes a moment to leak your data, and basically lulls ensue if you use that vernacular. So yeah, as I said, they offer a full delete option, and for $19 you can fully delete your account information. And actually this function was never really written. It just like modified some data. It erased a few things, but most of the information was left over. So yeah, lots of personally identifying information. And when their database got hacked, which most people presume was from an insider because that's the easiest way to leak information, their database goes online and you can just search over it and yeah, lulz. So yeah, what they did was they used bots to simulate women, which attracts male users. Here's the stats: 31 million male accounts in the database, 5.5 million female accounts. Most of them were bots, and most of them were never actually active. So you lure people in, and then you take their money and say you're going to delete their information. Here's the plan. Say you're going to delete their information, don't actually do it, get hacked and leak everything, and then just keep going. They're still in business today. You can check out their website, ashleymadison.com. No remorse, but yeah, people keep buying, I guess. They don't follow the news about things getting hacked. So there we go, nailed it. Next funny thing, pregnancy tracking apps. Like I said, if you are pregnant, your information is worth a lot more because you just have to buy and buy and buy. And so people make these apps, pregnancy tracking apps that make sure everything's going well. And you make an app for people and they don't think about the security. They just pick up their phone and they enter in any details that you ask them because they don't assume that it's going over a network. But so people put in all the details of their menstruation cycle, their personal weight, what medications they're taking, cervical mucus appearance, history of abortions, diarrhea, low sex drive, mood, all of that. And there's basically no thought whatsoever of security because you can sell this anyway and people will buy, and if they're going to buy it anyway, why would you even think about security? So yeah, this was the Glow pregnancy app. As I understand it, most of these problems are fixed now. So I don't want to get sued, I'll tell you that. It's better now, but at the time of a review, it was found that accounts were linked without permission. So let's say you want to share some of this data with your husband. You send them an invite and they can reply to it, and then instantly they have access to everything without you actually confirming it. So there was not a lot of control. We were talking in the last presentation about granularity, or 2 presentations ago. Access control. There was none. Personal data was in forums. So like Facebook, you can go and talk about whatever pregnant women talk about with each other. You can do this on a forum, and yeah, they don't tell you this, but it's all out in the open. Anyone can look at it. There's sort of a suggestion that it's private, but it's not. And then there were a few more things where they could iterate over all the user accounts because they were numbered sequentially, and there was a bug where you could just log in and change passwords. So you get complete access to their entire database with not too much work, and it's all very sensitive. So this is from a blog. I don't know if it was about the Glow app, but it's related. There's a couple apps in this space that have a similar business model. But yeah, 7 months after my miscarriage, mere weeks before my due date, I came home from work to find a package on my welcome mat. It was a box of baby formula bearing the note, "We may all do it differently, but the joy of parenthood is something we all share." So this woman realized that even though she wasn't pregnant anymore, because she had installed this app and used it, she was now on marketing lists, and they didn't go and notify the marketers after she had deleted the app. But yeah, so she keeps on getting targeted marketing about her baby, sending formula and diapers and all sorts of things like that, just to remind her of the experience she'd had. So yeah, this was a few more quotes from that article. Although I had logged my miscarriage into the app and stopped using it, that change in status apparently wasn't passed along. So there's a lot of money to be made off of all this data, and not a lot of thought or etiquette going into how we're using it. So on that note, here's the Internet of Things, which has come up quite a bit. A lot of people are really excited about it. And it's a hard market to get into. So margins start at 2%. There's intense competition among people who are making similar products. And everyone wants to offer the thing with the lowest price, because if you can get something for $25 or 24 or 24.50, sorry, euros, I guess. I'm still thinking like a Canadian. You're gonna buy the one that's cheaper most of the time. So what they do is they lock people into buying, and then, like I said earlier, double dip and try to sell them a product once and then sell their information, and that's where you make more money. So we have the advent of sex toys on the internet, where you control everything with your smartphone, and what could go wrong, right? And here's another thing everyone was talking about, REST APIs. So that's how you control things, and it goes over the internet, and again, not a lot of thought as to security. This was talked about at DEF CON, that some people did a little bit of an audit and found out a lot of details about bad practices from this company. And yeah, so the device shares temperature data and intensity settings in real time. And that goes right back to the company for market research, we'll call it. And yeah, so at this DEF CON presentation, one of the researchers, follower, said, "We want to question that assumption and say, you know, if you're making intimate devices and that are controlled by mobile apps, maybe you should consider whether you should be collecting that information in the first place. If the information isn't collected, then it's not vulnerable to either security or data releases and legal enforcement." So this is something Ludovic from XWiki talked about a little, that not on the topic of sex toys, but about collecting information, that you can collect information and use it to improve a product, and you should do that with the consent of your customers and do something to help them. And then there's information about I don't know, things that sometimes a company just has no business knowing. So yeah, there's a lawsuit going on over this, and the suit, yeah, as it says, without explaining to customers, the toy collects data on date, time of use, settings, and emails, and transmits it. And yeah, it's come up, lots of people have said it. Cory Doctorow, again, any data you collect will leak. Any data you retain will definitely leak. And if the NSA can't stop its secrets from leaking, what chance does standard innovation stand? Sorry, that's not Cory Doctorow. That was, I think, follower again from DEF CON, but Cory Doctorow has said similar things. But yeah, on the internet, people see these headlines on Slashdot, and a lot of people are saying, well, that's just how it works. You can't just connect two devices over the internet. Well, you can with new technology, but it's all very experimental. But yeah, they say you need some server to act as an intermediary, and servers just naturally collect metadata. That's what they do. Everybody turns on logs because if you get hacked, then logs are the only way you're going to figure out what happened. But they say it's not that big a deal. But yeah, that's not how it works. The web has improved. WebRTC lets people talk directly to each other with just a little bit of a handshake. And you can create metadata, but most of what you send will be encrypted. It can be encrypted. And yeah, this is important because there are various places in the world where this sort of stuff is illegal, and if you send it over the internet, people can go to jail. So I guess as companies, like we have to think about these things. So this was one of the people on Slashdot that says it has to share that information if it's going to be remotely controlled. And then there's more products that I'm not going to go into all the details, but you can understand why I find these things strange, that we're putting things on the internet that I don't know why they need to be there. Nanny cams going over the internet. And yeah, so Quinn Norton wrote an article and talked about, named this law, that over time all data approaches deleted or public. So if data is encrypted and people can't make sense of it, then they might just delete that. More likely they'll hold on to it until sometime when they're able to crack that encrypted information. But if it's unencrypted, then it's going to be public even sooner because everybody gets compromised sooner or later. And so that brings us to what I call the zero knowledge economy. It's sort of a response to the data economy. And the idea is that we came from this history of when you did something, then not everybody knew about it. A lot of things were ephemeral and would simply go away right after you did them. But now everything has a record, and so the zero knowledge economy is a way of selling to people the idea that when they trust their data to you, nobody has access to it. And if you don't implement policies like this, then users just have to believe you when you say that you've deleted information, like Ashley Madison. But service operators abuse trust, and when things are sensitive, your best option is to just prevent the operator from ever having access to that data. That can be in the form of just keeping everything local, or there's alternatives. So this is the zero knowledge economy. You provide a service to clients with a guarantee of confidentiality. So in some cases, you can do that with cryptography instead of empty promises. You can keep the cryptography open source because that's really the only way that cryptography makes sense. And maybe you can come up with some software as a service model for paying users, where you offer something else like hosting. That's a pretty common model. Spider Oak, for example, is out of time. Okay, I'll try to make this quick. You can do things locally. You can keep it from going over the network. And here's some examples. Encrypt is a pastebin service that uses client-side cryptography to keep all of the information that you post secret from the server. It has no idea what you posted, and the encryption keys are stored in the hash of the URL, so that's how you share it. Up1 is encrypted file uploading. CryptPad, this is what I work on almost every day, and that's real-time collaborative editing without the server having any idea what you're working on. So that Slashdot user who said this is just how it works, and servers have to know what you're doing. The truth is they don't. And yeah, the internet's been built on this idea that everything has to, middlemen have to know what you're doing. And this is a pretty untapped market. Nobody is doing this. So when you respect a user's privacy, you earn their loyalty. And it's fashionable because there's all of these applications. Google, Facebook, and several others are trying to get in on the end-to-end encrypted market. So that's it. Thank you.